days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a little bit of palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, the guy who you see all these books of beside me, my favorite author, and this is a show that I do here on the horror show. The horror show, as I like to emphasize, twice a week, usually every terrifying Tuesday and scarific Saturday, but sometimes due to scheduling conflicts, reviews we have to go do, press screening, stuff like that, it shows up on Sunday or Wednesday, but it's set days, at least when it's supposed to be airing, Tuesdays and Saturdays. So gracias very much for joining me here, and this is going to be another slightly shorter episode for the sheer fact that I am about halfway through The Outsider. I'm really digging the hell out of it thus far, and I want to finish it before the upcoming Tuesday, because today is Saturday, so that I can post my review and have the next episode of the show be all about that. And yeah, so this is actually kind of a continuation of something that I started a few months ago called When King Wrote for TV, and that was when I covered an episode of The X-Files called Chinga. Yeah, that's a fun word. As Fuego I would know. But yeah, anyway, so that was when King wrote an original story in the X-Files universe, but it was kind of a silly one, and it was very Stephen King-y, and it took place in Maine, and Scully's on vacation, so on and so forth. If you want to hear my thoughts about that episode, go and check it out. It's here in the playlist for Stephen King-themed episodes, but the episode, we're actually going to dial it back nearly a decade to November 22nd, 1987, when Stephen King wrote an original episode, a brand new original teleplay for a show that his buddy George Romero had created called Tales from the Darkside. The episode is called Sorry, Right Number. Yeah, kind of a play on of the Sorry, Wrong Number, which I believe was an old radio kind of drama type thing, if I remember correctly. But, so, yeah, as some of you may have seen here on the horror show, very similar to what I did with Tales from the Crypt, a far superior show that came after Tales from the Darkside. I was slowly making my way through the Tales from the Darkside series. I think, I can't remember if I was all the way through the first season and it started the second season, somewhere around there, but bottom line, I was not very impressed with that series in comparison with Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt being on HBO, Tales from the Darkside being on CBS. There's so many bad episodes. There's bad episodes of Tales from the Crypt, but there's a lot more. Just some of those Tales from the Darkside episodes were tough, y'all. And so it's I've had a lot of viewers say, "Hey, when are you gonna finish Tales from the Darkside? When are you gonna finish Tales from the Darkside?" You know, and I've been thinking about going back to it, especially after watching this episode. However, this episode did not get me excited to go back and finish it because this is a pretty lame story, honestly, y'all. It's floating around on the YouTubes. I own the entire series of Tales from the Darkside, so I just threw in the DVD. I had not gotten to this episode because this episode was in the fourth and final season of the series before they did the Tales from the Darkside movie, which was R-rated, more in tone with Creepshow and with Tales from the Crypt. And I actually really liked the Tales from the Darkside movie, especially the segment about the artist and the gargoyle-looking thing that he sees and stuff. That's a damn good anthology entry. But nonetheless, so the reason I'm not jumping all the way back and doing like Word Processor of the Gods, or, you know, King had a few other things that were adapted from his original source material for TV. There's a Twilight Zone episode, there's a Monsters episode, there's also, you know, this, you know, as I said, Word Processor of the Gods, which aired earlier in the life cycle of Tales from the Darkside. But the reason I settled upon doing this next was because this was an original story that he wrote specifically for TV. It had not previously appeared anywhere, and it wasn't somebody else adapting it. That King wrote this. Just to go through the basic premise without spoiling too much, you essentially have, it's Stephen King's, his life, basically. So there's a popular horror author And his wife, who's the main character here, she's on the phone with her sister, and she gets a mysterious phone call on their other line. So, you know, they have money if in the 1980s, you know, they're like, hold on, I'm going to put you on hold because they're jumping over to their other line. And so when she jumps over to this other line, there's like a sobbing person, you know, on the phone, and, you know, like practically hysterical, and she can't really make out what she's saying, but she knows there's something bad going on, and, you know, there's trouble afoot, essentially. And, you know, then the line is disconnected, and so she jumps over to the other, hangs up with her sister, and then in turn is trying to figure out, because this is before the days of Star 69 or caller ID or any of that shizzle, for you millennials who don't remember these more archaic times. But yeah, so nonetheless, she's trying immediately to figure out who it is, and she's positive it's a loved one. She's positive it's a family member. So her first inclination is that it's their daughter. And so she calls her daughter, who is presumably away at college, and finds out that it's not her. And she calls her sister, and she's not sure if it's the sister. And so her and her horror writer husband, you know, they go to investigate. And it's I'll be honest, without revealing it, I hate the twist in this. It's stupid and makes donuts for sense, which is one of my biggest problems with this. It's only a 20-minute episode, like I said, floating around on the YouTubes. I'm curious what all of your thoughts are on this, but the really interesting thing is that watching this episode, I think I watched it a few years ago on YouTube before I bought the Tales from the Darkside, but my first experience with this story was actually when King released the original script in Nightmares and Dreamscapes. So he put it in its script form, so he didn't alter it and, you know, turn it into a short story or whatever. He actually included the script in Nightmares and Dreamscapes, you know, that collection right over there. His biggest short story collection, and probably my least favorite. Not that it's bad, you know, there's a ton of great stories in there, but as a whole, yeah, I prefer you know, Just After Sunset, and you know, Bizarre Bad Dreams even, and you know, Skeleton Crew, and so on and so forth, and how can you forget Night Shift? But so nonetheless, it's really interesting, especially seeing what differs in the original script with what actually ended up on TV, because right after watching the episode, I was like, that's not exactly how I remember it. So right after I got done watching the episode just now before filming this, I broke out Nightmares and Dreamscapes, and I started skimming through the script, and I was like, that's weird. In the script, there was 3 kids instead of 2, so there was 2 boys and a girl, you know, just like King's family at the time, you know, because, you know, yeah, so it was at least a little more in similarity. Also, they changed the name of the book, which was adapted into a film, that, you know, his son in it is just like pleading with him to tape. He wants to see spiders kiss, and it's called Ghost's Kiss in the original script. And there's also just some extended bits in this. There is after something bad happens, without spoiling anything, there's an additional scene that's tagged on. There's also extended scenes, you know, with you know, some more with the mom and the kids, and so certain stuff is lengthier. There's somebody actually introducing Bela Lugosi style this movie that's on TV when he calls the operator to try to, you know, be patched in directly to his sister-in-law, you know, when his wife is like freaking out thinking maybe the call came from her, they can't get through. He has banter back and forth with the operator, and she's like, oh, I love your bucks, and, you know, she mentions a few additional ones compared to the script. And so, you know, I can see why it would be pared down, because if I'm not mistaken, the story was about like around 40 pages, and I know in scripts, like, it's basically supposed to be a page a minute, and this is only a 20-minute episode to account for commercial breaks and stuff like that, 30-minute program. So King, obviously, maybe he wrote a script thinking it was going to be like an hour-long episode, even though I think all the Tales from the Darksides were always 20 minutes, so who knows? It says in the credits that, you know, teleplay by Stephen King and whatnot, but it doesn't say who rewrote it and condensed and altered so much. And there's actually something with his wife at the end of the story that is totally changed in the original script. And there's some time jumping that goes down. They changed 5 years to 10 years. It's 5 years in In the original script, it's 10 years on screen. So, long story short, that was, as much as I don't like this story at all and think it's stoops, it's really one of Stephen King's weakest, unfortunately, especially the twist. But for me, it was fascinating to see how things change from script to screen. And so if you have an inclination, there is also an audio version of this from Nightmares and Dreamscapes, where they've got different... I haven't listened to the audio version because that's one that it's been released in segments, and so if I'm going through my Audible or through my audiobooks, because I've been slowly purchasing every Stephen King audiobook as well, digitally, so I've got I've got most of them at this point. I think I'm only missing like 10, maybe a dozen, something like that. But yeah, it's intriguing, but I would really be curious about how it's read, you know, how it's read by somebody, you know, especially being a script, you know, there's like author, if you've ever read a script before, there's like a narrator essentially describing certain scenes and, you know, cut to this and blah blah whatever, and, you know, yeah, it makes me wonder just how that would be approached. But yeah, since Nightmares and Dreamscapes is so huge, it's broken up into separate chunks in the audiobook format, so who knows, I'll have to start amassing those at some point. But just to come full circle, sorry, right number, I guess I shouldn't have answered it, but being a King completist, I had to at least take an episode to talk about this at some particular point. I am going to go through those other couple times when King stuff was adapted for TV. I'm at some point going to talk about The Cat from Hell, which showed up in Tales from the Darkside, the movie. So, I don't know. Do you like this episode? Is Fuego wrong? Am I just, you know, being a little too hard on it? Did you actually like the nonsensical twist? You're entitled to your opinion, obviously, fellow constant readers and viewers. So I gotta extend a grande gracias to everybody tuning into this. And, you know, before I forget, there is actually a 2005 remake short film that somebody did of this that I need to track down and find, because as I was looking at the wiki, I was like, oh, I got to start scouring the interwebs and try to find this. So yes, I have been Jaime and Fuego, as I just said. You can find me on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, just at Jaime and Fuego. We're going to be tossing up our review of Solo here on Monday. Myself, Cecil Laird, and a couple special guests are going to be getting all spoilery about that. And you can currently see our spoiler review of Deadpool 2. And also of Infinity War. Those were extended discussions. If you haven't subscribed here on The Horror Show, please do so and ring that little bell thingy that is going to give you notifications about any time you see a new Hail to Stephen King coming up twice a week, or all of the other things that we do here, like film reviews, how-tos, trailer reactions, lots of convention coverage coming up. Sadly, we, due to some faulty wiring and a fire alarm going off in the convention center, having to be evacuated, which was a big-time bummer for me, we did not get to do our Hail to Stephen King Pet Cemetery 35th anniversary panel. However, this weekend we are going to be filming it with all of the panelists who are supposed to be there, so you'll get to see that along with our It panel and our The Stand panel, which went off and were filmed as per usual here on the channel very, very soon. So yeah, everybody, until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, sin amigos, constant viewers and readers. If you dig this video, share it with the Hail tag, Hail to Stephen King, just like you see it spelled below. I hope that we get to see each other sooner rather than later. And until then, remember, stay scared. And read Stephen King, although I'm not sure if I would recommend it in this case, unless you're just curious about how King approaches a script. It's kind of insightful.